Story. The lantern man walks between my barns every night. At 3:17 a.m., I hadn't planned on staying the night. When I arrived at the farm, the air still held that bitter, late autumn sharpness. Dry leaves, wood smoke, and something faint underneath, like the breath of a room that hadn't been disturbed in years. My grandfather had died 3 weeks earlier. Stroke, they said. Peaceful, quick. That part didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was the letter, the will, the signature at the bottom, giving it all to me. House, land, barns, debts, and memories. I hadn't seen the man in nearly 12 years. He stopped talking to the family long before he stopped breathing. Mom said it was grief. My uncle said it was pride. I think it was something else entirely. I hadn't been back to the farm since I was 12. I remembered the feel of the porch boards under my bare feet, the rusty squeak of the windmill at the edge of the cornfield, and the way Bishop, our old Labrador, used to bark at the tree line at dusk. At the time, I thought it was foxes. Now, I'm not so sure. The new Bishop, same name, different dog, was with me now. A rescue, lean, anxious, smart. He'd been calm during the 4-hour drive from Asheville, but the moment we turned onto that long gravel road that led to the farmhouse, his ears flattened, and he let out a low, broken whine. I assumed it was motion sickness. It wasn't. The house was still standing. The same wraparound porch, same white siding, now flaking like old skin. Same screen door with a bent metal frame. Inside, it smelled like paper, dust, and oil. Like someone had kept everything clean, but hadn't actually lived in it. That first evening, I swept the floors, made a fire, and found an old cot in the back closet. The mattress was thin, but it would do. I opened a can of soup, poured a little into Bishop's bowl, and told myself I'd be gone by morning. But I woke at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of him growling. At first, I thought it was a dream. I'd been drifting between sleep and wakefulness, unsure where one ended and the other began. But when I heard Bishop's low, guttural growl and saw his silhouette tense at the front door, I knew I was awake. I sat up. Cold air slid over my bare shoulders. Outside the window, the yard was a pool of darkness. I saw nothing at first. Then, as my eyes adjusted, I saw it. A light, software amber, swaying, moving slowly between the two barns like a pendulum on a string. It reminded me of an old oil lantern, the kind with a glass dome and a rusted handle. But there was no one out there who should be holding it. I blinked hard. The light was still there. I reached for my phone, turned on the camera, and pressed record. When I reviewed the footage the next morning, all I saw was a black screen. No light, no movement, no sound. Just me breathing. The next night I left the porch light on. It flickered twice, then held steady, casting a cone of yellow across the front steps and part of the gravel path leading out toward the barns. I left the front door unlocked. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Stubbornness. The desire to prove that what I saw the night before had a rational explanation. Bishop paced by the window. He didn't bark this time. He just watched. I stayed up, sat in the old rocking chair that creaked like wood groaning under memory. Every half hour, I checked the clock on the wall. Midnight, 1:15, 2:30. Then, right on schedule, the room dipped in temperature, like something opened somewhere nearby. 3:17 a.m. I didn't even have to look. I felt it in my chest. Bishop whined. A single, low note. He backed away from the door, and then I heard it. Footsteps. Not heavy, not quick, Just the deliberate crunch of boots on gravel, slow and steady, as if the ground itself were counting. I walked to the window, careful not to disturb the curtains. There he was, not a ghost, not a hallucination, a man. He walked between the two barns, carrying a lantern that barely lit the space around him. I could see the outline of his coat, long, thick, worn at the edges. A brimmed hat obscured his face. His steps never faltered. He passed straight between the buildings and disappeared behind the far barn, swallowed by the dark. I waited, but he didn't come back. The air stayed cold for a long time after. The attic had always scared me as a child. Something about the slope of the ceiling, the smell of insulation, the silence. But the next morning, driven by a mix of dread and something deeper, something that felt like a warning, I climbed the narrow stairs and opened the trapdoor. It was mustier than I remembered. The air tasted like sawdust and regret. I found the journal beneath a pile of moth-eaten flannel. Hard leather cover, yellowed pages. My grandfather's handwriting tight, deliberate, leaning slightly to the right. The first entry was dated March 3rd, 1984. 3:17 a.m. again. Saw the man, between the barns, same lantern, same steps. Dog won't go near the door. There were dozens more, not every night. Sometimes weeks passed between entries. But the pattern was always the same. He's closer now. I measured the steps in the frost, 11 feet nearer than last week. He never looks at me, but I think he knows I'm watching. Tonight he stopped, just stopped. Held the lantern still, listened. There was no sound, but I felt something like a hum in my teeth. Like old power lines, static in my blood. Then this. I think I know what he's looking for. I think he wants to be remembered. He walks, so he won't be forgotten. The last entry was shorter. Just a single line. He reached the porch. I tried not to look the next night. I locked every window, pulled the curtains tight, left the television on for noise. But none of it helped, because at 3:17 a.m., the power went out. No flicker, no warning. Just instant silence, the kind that eats every echo. Bishop whimpered. I heard his claws scrabbling against the floor as he bolted into the bathroom. That was the only room without windows. And then, in the dark, I heard it again. Footsteps, crunching slowly up the gravel. The deliberate cadence of someone walking like they always have, because they don't know how to stop. This time, I didn't watch from the window. I opened the front door. The night was so cold it stole the breath from my chest. I stepped onto the porch barefoot. The wood was damp, chilled through. And he was there, at the bottom step, closer than ever. The lantern hung low in his left hand. The flame inside flickered, but didn't move with the wind. I saw more of him now. A long brown coat, frayed at the cuffs, work boots caked in dry mud, hands covered in old calluses and scars. The kind of hands that once dug fence posts and mended roofs and milked cows before dawn. And his face. It was soft, older than I expected, but not unkind, lined with time and exposure. His eyes were cloudy, pale, but not empty. They held something sad, something searching. He didn't speak. He just looked up at me for the first time and nodded, like I had finally done something he'd been waiting on for a very long time. Then he turned and walked away. I haven't left the farm since. I still hear him every night. 3:17 a.m. Sometimes I leave the door open. Sometimes I sit on the porch with a blanket and thermos and wait. He always walks the same line, between the barns, lantern low, gait slow and steady. But he never gets any closer now. He just passes by, like that one night when I faced him, fulfilled something. I've tried to leave, packed the truck 3 times, started down the gravel road with Bishop in the passenger seat. But I always turn back. Not because I'm scared, because I don't want to forget him. Because I think if I leave, he'll start walking again. And no one will be here to see. And if no one sees him, what happens then? Some nights I sleep through it. But on the nights I don't, I hear things. The soft hum of old lantern glass, the clink of a buckle, footsteps that match the rhythm of my own breath. And sometimes I wonder if there were other people, other caretakers of this line between barns, people who watched him so he could keep walking. People like my grandfather. Sometimes I think I'll see him again, the man with the lantern. Only this time, it won't be between the barns. It'll be at the foot of my bed. Lantern low, eyes tired, waiting. He walks to be remembered. He walks so he won't disappear. And every night, someone must watch, so the path stays clear. Welcome to Scroll and Shock, where every scroll sends chills down your spine. From true stories to eerie urban legends, we bring you scary stories to fall asleep to, if you dare. Dim the lights, put on your headphones, and get ready to scroll and shock.